On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers really needed that one. We're going to talk about their win against the Knicks, give out game awards, and Tristan Thomspon. Yes, Tristan Thomspon. That Tristan Thomspon seemingly earning the backup center role. Let's dive in.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I'm Chris Manning. That is Evan Dammarell. We are the Locked On Cavs podcast, and thanks again to Jake Stevens, as always, for his work on production. The Cavs win, beating the Knicks on the second night of a back-to-back on Wednesday. They win 95-89. Still no Jared Allen. Still no Darius Garland. Donovan Mitchell only had 5 points in the second half, but they got it done. It wasn't ugly. Well, it wasn't the prettiest, but this Cavs team needed a win to get their second on the season. Evan, what is your big takeaway from Cavs Knicks?
I mean, comparatively to when Cleveland hosted this back-to-back miniseries, like Evan Mobley had a pretty good bounce-back game. He wasn't like super impactful scoring-wise. I think if you just look at that from a pure counting stats metric, you're like, not that impactful. But like he had points, rebounds, blocks, assists, steals, like didn't get into foul trouble in this one. And as you noted, like Donovan Mitchell struggled in the second half of this game, and Evan Mobley kind of stepped up and really handled the responsibility and responded well to the physicality the Knicks were throwing at him. Like, I will highlight a play of the night later on in the game, or later on in this episode rather, but I think Mobley responded well. Like, obviously not the makings of your second best or best player overall, but like in the grand scheme of what he gave the Cavs when they played the Knicks in Cleveland 24 hours to when we were recording this compared to now, like a much better game for him.
I think the big thing for me is frankly just that they got to win in pretty uninspiring circumstances, right? Ugly game. The Boston Celtics scored 155 points in regulation. The Cavs and Knicks were like in the 70s until this game became a free throw thing late. Mitchell looked gassed in the second half. Mitchell looked like he had absolutely nothing left. Nothing left.
The free throw thing was so funny because I was Bally Sports had some issues after this game, or during this game.
We are gonna talk about that in segment 3 because I want to like pick your brain on what this experience was like for you, because I had no issues, but I went on Twitter and everyone did.
Yeah, and I texted you about it as like a joke, and then you couldn't relate. But I was watching the MSG stream, and like Clyde and just like was just like, yeah, you know, yeah, like they're just like, why do the Cavs keep fouling at the end of this game? Like it's over, guys. Like let's just wrap this one up. But like, yeah, the free throw thing just makes me laugh, just because it was a low scoring affair. Mike Breen noted like this is like the first time, I don't want to say all season, I wasn't like closely listening. I was taking notes at the end of the game, but this was like the first time in a while, like this is just a very low scoring affair between two NBA teams. Like it was a game reminiscent of like the early 2000s at times, just like a lot of ugly basketball, a lot of defense grind out, and the Cavs found a way to win. They're, now 2-0 in New York. So, hey, hats off to them.
You look at like this won't be my stat on it, but you look at like the offensive ratings for both teams. Cavs were 101.1. The Knicks were 94.7. Like there was nothing pretty about this game. The Knicks took a ton of mid-range shots. The Cavs ended up taking a bunch more threes. The Cavs were better at the rim, which is a big difference in this game comparatively to the Knicks on pretty similar volume. Credit to Evan Mobley, I think, for that more than anyone else. But I think ultimately, whatever the muck was, whatever the issue was here, I think they just really needed this. I think this didn't feel like a stretch where you were going to maybe freak out about the Cavs. At least I'm not there. I wouldn't have gotten there with this. Not in the way I might with like Memphis by comparison, a team that looks kind of lost to some degree. I don't feel like the Cavs, due to the injuries, have felt lost. But if you lose this game and you've won 1 out of your first 5 and you have a West Coast road trip coming up and you have the Warriors who look awesome on Sunday, like it is a hard place for you to be to start the season when you have these high expectations. I think just getting this win against this team on an imperfect night, I think they needed the feeling of this. However it came, whatever the takeaways are, I think that's going to be the most important thing, that they just needed to get a win by any means necessary.
I mean, yeah, the vibes were not as immaculate as Darius Garland may hope it would be. Like I give credit where credit's due to the Cavs for remaining like level-headed and focused, not maybe like imploding when things weren't going their way, and like they were not playing good basketball. They didn't play great basketball tonight either, but they did just enough to win this game. And as you and I were walking to the media room prior to post-game availability when Cleveland hosted in New York, we were like, oh, there's a reality where the Cavs are staring down the barrel of 1-6 hosting the Warriors on Sunday night when next time they're home, because they will have Thursday night or Thursday off for rest because they played a back-to-back, and then they head straight to Indianapolis to play the Pacers, and that team they didn't perform well against, and who knows who is or isn't available. But either way, like this, like you said, this is a win that the Cavs kind of need just to kind of maybe reset the palette, reset the morale, just for the 82 game grind. And like the Cavs are saying all the right things, saying like, hey, we realize like it's an 82 game grind. There's gonna be moments where like we lose 4 or 5 in a row, maybe we win like 7, 8 in a row after that. I'm not saying the Cavs are going on like this massive winning streak all of a sudden, but this was a needed win, especially just because considering the opponent, considering where they were playing at, like a place they didn't win a single game last season, this is a good reset for the Cavs, more or less, as they wait to get healthy elsewhere on their rotation and depth chart.
You cannot tell me that this win against the Knicks did not mean a little something extra because of who it's against. I know Karis LeVert has played this down, other guys have not. You have Tristan Thomspon and Josh Hart trading barbs about stakes and offensive rebounding and all kinds of stuff that feels very silly for one guy who wasn't on the team last year.
So glad that Tristan Thompson misunderstood my question and compared himself to blaming Jan and Josh Hart to a sirloin steak in terms of rebounding. So I'm glad.
You're
glad
to blame. You're to blame for like the well done. Hey, this is like the well done steak of barb trading. That's what this has turned into.
Oh, it really has. I've been quietly monitoring it, but I asked Tristan leading up to this game, just like, hey, Josh Hart has an uncanny ability to get offensive rebounds. Like, as a guy who also has that ability, do you like have like a understanding of how Josh is so good at it? And do you like see similarities, or like how do you guys contain it? And he's just like, me and Josh Hart, no similarities. I'm a filet mignon. Josh Hart's more of a sirloin. If you want to compare games, he then Tristan said compare him to Patrick Beverley, and I'm like, jeez.
Tough. All right, we're gonna come back. Game awards.
I mean, that's what you brought him there for. He's a good trash talking vet. So
yeah, he's good at saying things that sound really good. All right, coming up next, Game Awards. MVP, not going to be who I think. Mitchell might be your default. I think there's another guard that is worthy of that. We'll talk about that coming up next. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the most fun way you can play daily fantasy sports this season. You can win up to 25 times your money this basketball season. And with basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League. It's a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different leagues. For example, you could take LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. You can play along some of PrizePicks' favorite players, including rapper Meek Mill and the comedian Andrew Schultz. PrizePicks also offers a reboot policy that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. They are the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury assurance policy. Right now, go to prizepicks.com and use our code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LOCKEDONNBA and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a free deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Game awards, Evan. I'm going pretty easy here. Karis LeVert for MVP. They did not have him on Tuesday on the Halloween game. They did have him for this one. They did have him in this situation where they needed someone to pick up some of the scoring load, to pick up some of the responsibility, to hit big shots when Mitchell, again, did look gassed in the second half. They needed this kind of Karis LeVert. It's a one that's hard to find when everyone is healthy and his role is a little more clear. He looks almost at his best at times when one of the other guards is out, but they needed him to play the 30 minutes, to have 19, to have the 6 boards, to have the 5 assists. They needed this Karis LeVert if they were going to win this game, and they got it.
Yeah, it's interesting to note just because Karis LeVert made a lot of his damage in the second half, especially when Donovan Mitchell was struggling mightily from the floor in the second half. He had 12 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal. Mostly the scoring aptitude is what you want, especially the 3-point shooting. I think I would say, hit the dagger against the Knicks in this game, or he hit that 3-pointer in the closing, like at least the last few minutes. It was just such an ugly game, but like really cemented, like, hey, the Cavs beat the Knicks in New York. Good for them. They couldn't do that last season. But like, yeah, this was a really good game from LeVert. We don't know if he's fully at 100% because he's dealing with those hamstring issues leading into this game. But like, if you had told me he was your MVP based on the first half performance and just like the fact that Mitchell was the only double-digit scorer in the first half for Cleveland, would have said you were crazy. But like, LeVert picked up the slack. My MVP, who was Evan Mobley, I'll talk about in a second, picked up the slack as well. And like the Cavs are able to squeeze something out of their other players, or at least in Mobley's case, their other star, so that they could alleviate New York putting 2 players on Mitchell and forcing the ball out of his hands, and maybe forcing him to be more of a creator for his teammates versus a guy who's just getting any shot or look that he wants at the basket.
Let's go on. Is he your MVP as well?
No, Evan Mobley's my MVP, just because, like I said in the first segment, this is a really good bounce back game for Mobley. Like, he played really well in this game. I think just the fact that, like, sure, Mitchell Robinson still may have his number, maybe Isaiah Hartenstein does too, or just how the Knicks scheme against him. But like, there's a lot of moments, and I'll just tip my hat to the play of the night. My play of the night, rather. JB Bickerstaff talked about this post game when Cleveland hosted New York, that the Cavs struggled to make a lot of attempts off Mobley passes, and in the closing moments of this game, Mobley kicked the ball out to Dean Wade when New York collapsed on him on defense, and Dean Wade made the 3-pointer. And I don't know, Mobley maybe doesn't have the most refined vision. His handle still isn't super tight. It's pretty loose just when I watch him play, but he does have a good enough vision to understand like how to kick out the perimeter shooters and also how to be effective as a passer and a playmaker, that he was able to get other players involved when he wasn't getting the looks maybe that he needed. And it was kind of concrete, at least in helping the Cavs win this.
Mobley was truly, I think, really...
He bounced back well.
I think there's still some real offensive concerns, and I think that's an episode we're going to do next week. I think it's going to kind of be time to do it and see where he's at, and because games are games. But I think defensively, even with some of the rebounding stuff for the Knicks, he was so good at protecting the rim that it kind of deterred, I think, some of the New York strength. All right, stat of the night, or my play of the night, excuse me. So Mitchell had a block in the fourth after he messed up and turned the ball over.
This is a good pick.
Look, the effort was there from defensively overall in this game, I think. I thought he was really on point defensively. I thought he was engaged. He had moments where he stonewalled Jalen Brunson pretty darn well, and that matters. And for him in this spot where he easily could have just said, you got me, I made it quickly, I made a dumb pass, you get 2 points for it. He hustled, he got the block, gave the Cavs a chance to fight another day. That's the kind of stuff you need from your best player. That's the kind of big effort plays you need from your best guys and to win a game like this. So kudos to Donovan Mitchell for that. Stat of the night. 5 points for Mitchell in the second half. Not exactly enough, really, but they got the win anyway. And he got them just in a row with about 2 minutes to go when they needed him the most. Hits a 3, misses the 3 in the next possession, gets the offensive rebound, gets the putback. Those 5 points, The LeVert shot you mentioned is probably the real game icer, as are the free throws, but that felt like the moment where if you looked at that game and looked at the flow of it, that's the moment to me, at least, Evan, where I felt, okay, the Cavs are going to win this because Donovan Mitchell found a way to at least get some points on the board when they needed them to.
Yeah, my stat of the night is similar to yours, it's the same as yours. Before he finally cracked the seal a little bit and scored in the second half, it was just more so the fact that hey, New York is applying the template that worked when Mitchell played in Utah, where you throw two bodies at him and force him to be a playmaker and maybe break down the Quinn Snyder offense of having guys that are kind of mostly relegated to spread pick and roll or just sticking within their certain lanes and stuff. But no, Mitchell cracking the seal a little bit and just getting those 5 points in the second half does crystallize how this game went for Cleveland in terms of just his motor maybe not being 100% because he may not be 100% because of the hamstring issues. And this is also the second game in a row he's leaned on quite heavily in terms of just minutes played on the floor for Cleveland, but it wasn't terrible. And I think him making that 3-pointer was part of that flurry where the Cavs just finally put the Knicks away for good. And sure, there's some foul issues to finish out the game, but the Cavs found a way, and it was spearheaded by their best player, who did not have a good second half by any stretch of imagination.
Yeah, and for Mitchell, again, that just, I think what we're getting at here with him, I think this speaks to his engagement and his effort in these kinds of games. So even if I just think that speaks well of him and what he's kind of about in these moments, at least in my mind. All right, one more break. Going to come back and talk about Tristan Thomspon and Bally Sports. Talk about that coming up right after this. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, which is the official sportsbook of Locked On and America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. So that's $150 if your team wins. You've been thinking about joining FanDuel. There's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Right now, visit FanDuel.com/lockdown and kick off the NFL season. They have tons of NBA stuff as well, including win totals, championship odds, MVP odds, all of that fun stuff. That's FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So Tristan Thompson's the Cavs backup center now, huh? Where we're at?
That is where we are at. I had leaned to you during Cavs Knicks part 1 when it was in Cleveland. Obviously, we're recording from home in this one, but
we recorded at home yesterday, but we were at the game yesterday, to be specific.
I'm saying obviously in the sense that we're recording after game 2 of this series, and we're not in a hotel in New York or enjoying ourselves in New York slice or enjoying something walkie style or whatever. But yeah, it was noticeable in the fact that Damian Jones wasn't the first big man off the bench for the Cavs. It was Tristan Thomspon, who has played pretty well in this matchup. I think when we talked about the Thompson signing, it makes sense to maybe have him as that extra guy who has a nose for offensive rebounds, or at least can infer the knowledge of how to grab second chance opportunities he has a knack for. But go Zips. But yeah, it's just interesting because Damian Jones, when we're talking about best case, worst case scenarios, I kind of said his worst case scenario is in his multiple stops in the NBA, whether it's Golden State, the Lakers, or the Jazz, or now the Cavs, he's never really had a clear thing he's good at to get consistent minutes in a rotation as a backup big man. Whereas Tristan Thomspon, is definitely past the twilight of his career, but knows what he's good at, and that's rebounding, providing you defense and hustle plays, and also if you're running a pick and roll with him or something like that, he probably gives you a better look at the basket than Damian Jones does right now, which says a lot about Damian Jones and also maybe a lot about Tristan Thomspon too. So I just think you don't really mess up a good thing. You stick with him as your backup center, and if it doesn't work, you can always just go back to Jones, or maybe you give Isaiah Mobley some burn instead.
Yeah, I think with his work with Tristan, that he sets good screens. He is very on point as far as where he needs to be defensively. He is on point as far as what he's being asked to do, and he's playing with effort. And I do wonder if there's a leadership component of this as well, that he is a vocal guy. I think in a moment where they need someone vocal. And I don't know how much this will hold up fully. They're plus 2 points. This is prior to the game Wednesday, I believe, but plus 2.7 per 100 possessions overall in 23 minutes for Thompson. Small sample size, but he's been good. The offense better than the defense in those cases, because that's the kind of the skew of the season so far. But he's been good, and I think it's not surprising to me, but it is telling, I guess, about where JB's head is at with some of this, which I think is just kind of that to me is kind of interesting, just to kind of watch how that will be monitored and that will be figured out as we go. All right, let's go to Bally Sports. Evan, talk. So from what I have read, looking at Reddit and stuff,
sure,
it seems like they tried to maybe install a password sharing blocking thing, and that like messed up their system. I know there's also just like it has often not worked very well anyway. So this crash, and like lots of people that use the app to watch the games just couldn't watch the game because this didn't work.
Full disclosure, other than Disney Plus, the Bally Sports app is like one of the worst streaming applications I have on any of my smart devices, whether it's my iPhone, my game systems, or even just like the TVs itself, like smart TVs itself. Like, it is so clunky and unrefined and like honestly antiquated technology that like it's stunning. But I didn't know this was a thing since Monday of this week. Like Grizzly fans were complaining about it. Pistons fans, like several Pistons writers I follow or Pistons fans I know, canceled their like subscription to Bally Sports Plus just because it wasn't working. But truly incredible for a company that has the license to so many major sports markets. And that's not just the NBA, it's the MLB, the NHL, subsidiaries in between, like whether it's like college stuff and things like that. But like how bad the application is, and just like how bewilderingly unrefined it is, and like the poor person running the social media accounts is just like getting all the heat from people who are just beyond frustrated, understandably so, because a lot of people don't pay for cable anymore. They pay to cut the cable, and maybe they buy Bally Sports Plus because they love their team so much. But to me, moments like this where I haven't checked, like I can check right now as we're recording at 11 p.m. on Wednesday evening if they're back up online, but I'll just say it. I pirated a stream from MSG, and I learned that there is a Knicks fan who named their daughter Nick or something like that. But still, they're back online as of an hour ago, but we'll see how it goes. But like, genuinely frustrating. Chris didn't have to deal with this because he's a FUBO member. But I empathize with the individuals who want to watch the Cavs on a nightly basis, who maybe can't afford to go to games on a nightly basis, or maybe go as often as they'd like to. And all they can afford right now is maybe a basic bare bones like package to watch the Cavs. And sure, there's throw-ins with like the Monsters, the Blue Jackets, the Guardians as well, to maybe sweeten the pot. But it is so frustrating for a streaming provider that is in it's been in its death rolls for a while now. Like, it's been gasping for air. I'm surprised Bally Sports is still here, honestly. But to me, my biggest indication of this is like the Clippers have done it, other NBA teams have done it, many other sports teams have done it. The Lakers, I think, are doing it right now, despite their like deal with Comcast and Sportsnet out there in Los Angeles. But there's a clear demand to watch these teams, and teams are multi-billion-dollar organizations at this point. They should just offer streaming services within like their applications or platforms that give the fans what they need in terms of game-by-game broadcasts, which feature Austin Carr and John Michael and Serena Winters working the sideline because they are employees of the team on top of being employees of Bally. and they just navigate that lane. Like, it's just frustrating because like you shouldn't have to jump through hoops just to watch your favorite sports team because you can't afford to go to every single game, or you want to tune into them and you're paying like the $15 a month to begin with. And those rates just keep going up and up and up and up, and you're not getting a good, proper return on your investment. There's my rant on streaming and why streaming was the counterpoint to piracy to begin with. It put away with it, and now piracy is more than on the rise once again because streaming sucks across most applications.
So a lot. You just said a lot of things. So I vented because
I watched the first half of this Cavs game via a service the Cavs provide to media members in terms of like real-time stat tracking. So like it's super helpful, but I wasn't getting a full scope of what was happening. And it was really frustrating for me because I'm like, okay, Ballet's will pick up eventually. And I'm like, nah, it's not. But the floor is yours as I cool myself off.
Yeah, go play in FanDuel for a minute and chill out. So this is to me the whole thing. It should not be this hard in 2023 for people to watch something and even if you have to pay for it, like,
but people are already paying for it and it doesn't work.
So that's what I'm trying to say. The fact that people are paying for something and it doesn't work is insane. The fact that this is like kind of normal is insane. The fact that I think everyone's first association with the Ballet app is that it just doesn't work is nuts. It's nuts that there was a delay in the game itself because they had to clean up after a dance team, and that was not the most like obnoxious thing people had to deal with tonight as far as watching the Cleveland Cavaliers. If you're what I would end on is saying that if you're someone who has this issue, who wants something better, you should blow up the team and be like, can you change this for next year? And cite what the Jazz have done, what the Suns have done. Like there's a precedent here now for this getting to
examples.
Yeah, and those are the ones that have really just, I think, are setting a new path. And I don't know how those have worked exactly yet, but you should demand better, is what I would say. Or like, I understand why local blackouts exist, but just like let people buy League Pass if they want. For you, you can buy it for one team, and you could just watch the Cavs that way. You should just like have that option. But say la vie. Evan, let's get out of here.
Streaming services are dumb. I think the oversaturation of the market of streaming services is dumb. But you know what? If the NBA is so paranoid, or the NFL is another example, is so paranoid about people like illegally pirating their streams, make it much more accessible to people to like watch these. That's all. But
here's the difference between the NFL and the NBA. That is, I think, at the core of this issue. The NBA, the NFL, every single week has games on your basic have an antenna cable, CBS, Fox. Yes, they put games on Prime. Yes, you can watch Sunday Football on Peacock. But they have games on like the channels everyone can get with an antenna on purpose. The NBA is not accessible in that same way, and I think that creates some of the issues you have here. It's the same issue for baseball and some other things as well. It's why people go find less than legal routes to watch these things because they want to.
Baseball is a great example because people are talking about how like the Rangers just won the World Series as we wrap this up. Congrats to Dallas, but people are talking about how like the viewer numbers have dipped considerably. Everybody doesn't have the means to watch the World Series right now. Like you said, people could buy an antenna, or maybe just don't have that accessibility because antennas aren't the most reliable medium either. But like you said, we're in 2023. I can literally manage my diabetes from my smartphone in terms of my blood sugar and insulin intake. And that is rocket science. Like if you told 5th grade Evan who went on his insulin pump he could do that, he would scream at you and call the cops. We should be able to have like the understanding, especially these multi-billion-dollar entities where there's a clear demand, like they should be able to figure out a way to provide to fans in a way that makes them happy. And also it's a return on investment because the Cavs can set the price. Fans will more than pay for it if they want to watch it.
Send there. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. Thanks again to Jake Stevens. As always, I'll be back on Friday doing a crossover with Tony East, talking about the in-season tournament, the Pacers' abomination of a court, and we'll look ahead to that Friday matchup. We'll talk to you then. Have a great Thursday.